Let's go ahead and try to make our own pause menu. This will require creating a GUI and also pausing the game while it's playing. Let's do that. Now that we're back in our original project, we're going to have to figure out how to create a pause menu. Godot actually makes this really easy in terms of pausing the game, because if we go over to the right, we'll notice we have this thing called node, and it has a feature called process. Every single node will inherit from the node. If we go over here to kinematic body 2D, we'll notice there's the node again, tile map once again, there's node again. So every single node will have a pause feature already built in. If it's set up to inherit, it means it will figure out what is the pause of the one above it. So for example, this kinematic body 2D is set up to inherit. Therefore, it'll look up to main level and we'll see what its pause is set at. Since this is set up to inherit, it'll look up one level higher. If it looks up to the highest level, it'll look up to this thing called getTree.pause. So we'll look into that later, but for now, we need to figure out how to create an object that will not be paused when we eventually set getTree.pause equal to true. To do that, we're going to create a control. And these are UI pieces right here that you use to create UI for your game. So we're just going to get this, grab it up, and put it right there. So now we're going to work on a UI before we get to pausing the game. Because, well actually no, you know what? Let's go ahead and add a script. We're going to work on pausing the game right now. So we need to get an input event called paused. So let's just go ahead and get this func pros. One thing we might want to point out is how does pausing even work in Godot? Well, basically you have two functions that run all of the Godot engine, process and physics process. This is one of them. What pause does is it stops the calling of these objects. So for example, the process function would draw the image and it would calculate how much your object would move. By no longer calling the process and physics process functions, it will stop the game in its tracks. It's actually very useful for us. So we're going to do input is action just pressed, and we're going to do pause. We're going to add an if to it. So if the pause button is pressed, we are going to get tree. Once again, remember how we said it goes here, and it looks what that is, and then it looks up one more. Well, in order to get what's up there, we need to use get tree, and then we're just going to get the feature pause, and we're set equal to true. Therefore, we're going to pause the game when the pause button is pressed. Now, what is this pause button? Well, I already have it set up by default, but you'll need to do this. So go up here to project settings, go to input map, and add something right here called pause, and hit the add button. You can choose whatever button you want, but I have it set up to shift automatically. So just do that and you'll get it. So let's go ahead and see this in progress. Boots up, we move around, hit the shift button, and it's all paused. Now we know how to pause the game, but we'll notice I'm pressing the shift button again, and it's not moving at all. Now the reason why we wanted to get this control node here first is because we're saying we're going to pause all of this. If we put a script up on main level and we pause the game, we wouldn't be able to unpause it because it would no longer be able to call this process function. So in other words, we pause it and have no way to unpause it. But we come over here and we change this to process. That means it's no longer going to look up to see whatever the highest one is. It's going to look at itself and it's going to go, I don't care if it says pause, I'm going to continue no matter what. So we can then go in here and we can add another if statement, and we can say if not paused, and we're going to add that variable in right here. Go are not paused equal to true by default. If it's not paused, then we're going to pause it, and we're going to set not paused equal to false. Else, add a colon, we're going to get the tree, we're going to set paused equal to false, and we're going to get not paused, and we're going to set it equal to true. So this should work in unpausing our game. Go ahead and see it in action, and there we go, pause and unpaused, just like that. Now, just for demonstration purposes, let me go ahead and back here Let me set this back to inherit just to prove why we needed to get the control set up first. If I hit the pause button, nothing happens. Hit the pause button again. I can't unpause because I'm no longer calling that physics process button. So once again, that's how it pauses the game. So make sure when you're trying to pause it that you actually have your unpause feature outside of the thing that's getting paused. So let's go ahead and add a UI. There are a lot of different ways to do this. Let's go ahead and just add in a panel. So panel, like that. Very simple. We're gonna stretch this out, and we'll notice it's actually having the character go over it. And you might notice it's a little weird because not only is the character higher up than the control, the reason for this is that even though we have the control lower down on the tree, we actually need to put it inside of a canvas layer. In order to do that, we go to plus, and we're going to type in canvas layer like that, and click that. Drop control into the canvas layer, and now we'll notice it's above the player. We'll go ahead and hit play, and when we do, we'll notice, just allow access, don't know why that's happening. Okay. The player's behind it and can peep out of it. So now we have a panel showing up above the player. Let's go ahead and add some customization to it. Let's go ahead and add a label. And we'll have this say paused. And we'll go ahead and add a button. Like that. Go. And we'll have this say we'll have it say return to menu. Go. Okay, and if we want to center this, we'll notice I have my panel here and I have my control there. They're not quite aligned, and the reason why is we're going to want to go here, layout, and hit full rect, and it's going to align it with our control. And the reason why you're going to want to do that is so that when you come here and you go to layout and you hit the center button right here, center top, it's going to center it based off of what its current parent is, in this case the panel. So we don't want button to be a child of label and be a child of panel. We're going to go ahead and center this in top center as well. If you drag something, it's kind of hard to line it up, but if you drag it and hold shift, it will move along the axes either like that or like that. So just pull that down, and then same thing with paused, pull it down a bit. Now we've got a little bit of a pause menu up and running. But it's not that good. It kind of looks a little weak, and not only that, but we'll notice the font actually looks pretty terrible. And this is because it's an out-of-the-box font. We're going to actually get our own font. It's going to look a little bit better, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. First thing we're going to need is we're going to need to import a font of our own. You can do it however you want. I'm just going to quickly go grab one, so I'm going to be right back. Okay, now that I'm back, I've got this Obity Sans regular font. You can get it from a lot of places. For example, Google has a wonderful free font site where you can just get tons of fonts. But now we're going to go ahead and we're going to create our own custom font. To do that, we're going to click on this button right here, Custom Fonts, and we're going to click plus. We're going to make a new dynamic font. You want that because it's going to scale better. And you'll notice all our text is gone. The reason why is because we need to customize this font. So click on this button right here, and you'll get extra menu options pushed out. You'll see this font, and we're going to want to put in font data. So just take your Obity regular, or whatever you have, drag it on top of here, and we have this. It looks pretty bad. The reason why is we're going to go ahead and space it out. Let's go ahead to settings, and size it up. Here we go. Looks a little bit better. This is a little bit of a bigger font, so that's why it looks so bad when small. One of the reasons why we want to use this instead of the other one is that dynamic fonts actually can get bigger. So for example, if we go this one right here, you'll notice there's no size increase. It's this font and that's it. You can't increase the size. Whereas this one, you have this size button down here thanks to the dynamic font. So now we have a much bigger pause button or a paused label. Now when we go ahead and hit the play button, we're going to go ahead and notice that we've got a pretty decent pause menu now. We can add more to it, but now we need to make sure it's not visible when we first start the game. It's actually very simple to do. These eyes over here stand for visibility. Let's go ahead and hit the eye button right here, and we'll notice it's gone. It's no longer visible. We need a way in order to show that it will be visible, and it's actually very easy inside of the script. Right here, it's actually very easy to start with. We're just going to go ahead and type in visible, and we're going to set it equal to true when we're paused, and we're going to set it equal to false when we're not paused. So visible go to false. So now, if we hit the play button, we can see not visible. We're moving around. Shift, pause. I can't move. Under the pause button, it's up. I can hit the return button, so it's functioning. Left shift again, and we're back. Now we have a working pause button. Let's go ahead and set up the button just for right now. It could be something useful to learn. So we have this button here. How do we connect it up? One simple way to do it, and it's not always the best way to do it, but we'll talk about the best way to do it next video. For now, go over here to node, and we're going to see this thing we'll call pressed. If you click this node with the script we want to connect it to, for example, we want to connect it to the control script, click control, click connect. And we'll see it auto puts a function in there. That will be called when it's pressed. So we're going to go ahead and print button pressed. Let's go ahead and see if that works. Now, so see that? And it loads, pause, return to menu, and boom, there we got it. So now we have a working button. So our pause menu is good for right now. We're going to stop. We've learned how to pause the game. We've learned how to create a very basic pause menu. We've learned how to import our own custom fonts, how to resize those fonts, and then we've learned how to create a button and set it up to where it will connect to a script. In the next video, we're going to learn about changing scenes,